There is no denying it, shooting film is expensive. But so is buying food, driving a car and going out for drinks. So if you've decided that you want to shoot film, I have 10 tips for you that will make it a little bit more affordable. I started shooting film in 2010 and over the years I have definitely seen the prices of film increase exponentially. But I have also found a few ways to make shooting film a little bit less painful on the wallet. Here are 10 tips that will hopefully help you keep costs down, whether you're just getting into film photography or whether you've been shooting it for a while. Tip number 1. Talk to people. If you're looking for a film camera, my number 1 tip is to talk to people. Talk to your family, your friends, your coworkers, your baker, basically anybody who is willing to listen and tell them about your interest in film photography. There is a good chance that at least one of them will have an old film camera lying around in their basement, or maybe you have an uncle that used to shoot film but now he's all into digital, so maybe you can take over his equipment. Most of the film cameras that I own personally were actually given to me. For instance, one Christmas I was given a 35mm Praktica camera by my cousin's husband just because he heard that I was interested in photography. There are a lot of film cameras still out there, forgotten or unused, and letting people know that you are interested in them will increase your odds of getting a cool film camera for free or for very little money. Another time when talking to people really helps is, for example, on flea markets. If you see somebody who is selling a camera, talk to them and maybe even ask them if they have other cameras. Not so long ago, my boyfriend and I were doing a vide-grenier, which is basically the French version of a flea market. There was this guy who was selling one camera. We started talking to him and we talked about his collection, and suddenly he brought out an entire box filled with cameras and lenses, and in the end he actually sold us 4 cameras and a couple of lenses for a mere 15 euros. Of course, bear in mind that when you're getting a camera from somebody you know or off a flea market, that these cameras might not be in perfect shape, so it's always best to take a look at it first, or if somebody else take a look at it. And definitely for the first roll of film that you shoot in it, just use a really cheap roll of film to see that everything is working perfectly. Tip number 2, you don't need a Leica right now, or even a Hasselblad 500 CM, even though you really want one. You don't really have to shoot all the cameras that the big boys are shooting with. There are a lot of cameras out there that are perfect for beginners and perfect for people who are more advanced as well, but that are just really underrated. For example, the Praktica cameras. These cameras are so underrated and I really couldn't tell you why. I really love my Praktica camera. You can buy these cameras for about 50 euros with a lens on eBay and they are really good. If you're looking to buy your very first film camera, there is really no need to buy any of these really high-end famous cameras. There are a lot of really cool affordable cameras out there that will do just the same. Tip number 3, shoot half the frame. If quantity is important to you, if you want to get more photos out of your roll of film, you can buy a half-frame camera, like for instance the Olympus pen. Half-frame cameras can take double the amount of exposures on a regular film roll, since they only use half the frame. So with these cameras you can really double the amount of photos you take, and it costs just as much to develop these as regular. Do keep in mind that you will lose a little bit of quality because the negatives of these cameras are a lot smaller as well. Tip number 4, find expired film, but not just any. I do not recommend going on eBay and buying a lot of film rolls that are expired off some random guy that doesn't know when they were expired or how they were stored, because this is just setting yourself up for failure. Shooting expired film can be a fun experiment, but it can also be heartbreaking to shoot a roll of film and then find out there is nothing on the roll or that everything looks terrible. What I do recommend is checking out your local camera store or even your favorite online film store to see if they are not actually selling some expired film that was recently expired for a major discount. This way I was able to buy some rolls of Kodak Ektar 100 and even Kodak Portra 800 for only 10 euros a roll. Since these film rolls were barely past their expiration date and they had been kept in their fridge, they were basically as new. Another tip here is to shoot black and white expired film, as it doesn't deteriorate as much as color film. I've shot some black and white film that was expired 20 years ago and I barely noticed a difference. Tip number 5. You don't need the most expensive film. In general, you have film rolls that are really expensive and you have others that are a bit less expensive. For example, black and white film is a lot more affordable than color film. And when you're looking into the black and white film, you can still make a choice based on their prices. For example, you can buy a roll of Kentmere 400 for about 6 euros. If you want to buy a Kodak Tri-X, it will be almost double the price. And of course, there will be differences between these two film stocks and you might prefer one over the other. But you know, you came here for tips to make it more affordable. So here you go. Tip number 6. Buy in bulk. If you have the money to spend up front and you know what film stock you want, then it is a good idea to buy boxes of film instead of rolls, because they will be cheaper as a set of 3 or 5 or sometimes even more than they will be when you buy them individually. Another way to buy in bulk is to buy spools of film and actually re-spool them yourself. But this is something I haven't tried myself yet, so I can't really comment on this, but it is definitely also an option. Tip number 7, be deliberate with what you shoot. Now, me personally, I love film photography, I love the process, I also love the look of film in certain photos. I definitely think that I've taken photos with film cameras that I couldn't have taken with digital cameras, but on the other hand, I do still shoot digital as well. I do think there is a time and a place for both of these. When I go out shooting film, I usually reserve it for special projects or for when I go shooting very intentionally. My advice would be to keep film alive, but definitely don't waste it. Tip number 8. Develop your own film. Or date somebody who will do it for you. Now, if I didn't have this guy to give my film to, I would have to go into the city, I would have to drop my film off at a local camera store, they would then send it away to have it developed, then they would send it back to the store, I would have to pick it up at the store, and I would have to pay like 20 euros just to pay for developing. Whereas you can buy film chemicals to develop your own film for basically twice that price, and you can develop a lot more film with it. Of course, it's a little bit of an investment in the beginning to get the materials for your home lab, but if you're a regular film shooter, it pays back for itself really quickly. Tip number 9. Scan your own film. Sure, having a lab scan your film is a lot easier, but if you want to save a few bucks, then you can basically do it yourself. Back in the day when I started shooting film, nobody was digitalizing their negatives with digital cameras, and I had to go and buy an expensive film scanner. I do still use this scanner to this day, so it was not a bad investment, but still. These days you can just use your digital camera to take photos of your negatives, put them on your computer, convert them into positives, and voila, you have your photos. Tip number 10, work that film. Now that you have those beautiful film photos on your computer, why not try to sell some prints? This way you can let your film help pay for itself. So these are my 10 tips for saving money while shooting film. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful for you, and if it has, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!